Hey everyone, welcome to the show. This is going to be called The Weirder the Better, right? My name's Jeff. I'm joined by Rachel.
Hello.
And we like weird movies. And we've had a long history of talking about movies with one another. And somewhere along the line, we'd say something like, this movie's good, but it's pretty weird. And the reply would almost always be, well, the weirder the better. I'm here for it. I mean, I appreciate a good movie, a straight-faced movie that just kind of makes sense and is of a level of quality. But there's something about seeing a movie that's just weird. And I don't mean like, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness it's pretty weird when the guy shows up and you didn't expect it. No, I'm talking about real weird, it makes you feel a little slimy, maybe makes you,
Yeah.
This
could have been the grimier the better, but we went weirder.
Yeah. Movies that make you feel something that that you weren't necessarily thinking that you wanted to feel, but something nonetheless. My name's Jeff, joined by Rachel. Rachel, you are a bona fide content empire in your own right. Tell us a little bit about the Zombie Girls stuff. Like what what is that all about?
Yeah, if running a content empire is putting out a lot of shows no one wants to listen to, then yes, I do.
Well, that's everybody. Have you ever noticed there's more, like everybody's got a podcast, and everybody's got I feel like there's more podcasts than there are people who can possibly listen to them. You ever get that feeling?
Oh yeah. For years I stayed off social media, and then I went into social media and I'm like, oh, everyone has a podcast. Yeah. Literally everyone. Like you in the delivery room are handed a Yeti mic and are like, let's see what you make.
But I'm already interrupting the Zombie Girls.
Yeah, so the Zombie Girls is a podcast network that's been around forever. It's like slowly grown over time. It started off with, we call it Zombie Girls Prime, where we talk about horror movies from a feminist perspective, and then we've iterated from there, and we talk about a bunch of different aspects of horror. And then there are a couple of weirdo outliers, like our Dark Tower podcast, the Castacaw, that I do with DJ, who people will see kicking around here sometimes. He's part of the Outpost unknown family. And then a Nick Cage podcast for reasons I don't know. These things happen. I blame alcohol, but yeah.
I'm a particular fan on the Zombie Girls network of the Stream Queen show. I really enjoy that. And also you guys are great follows on social media and stuff, especially over the past COVID crazy years. I got a lot of mileage out of, I don't know who curates it on your end, but someone would put up these posts weekly or bi-weekly or something of what's new on streaming that a genre fan might be interested in. And I got a lot of benefit out of that. I thought that was great stuff. So be sure you follow the Zombie Girls on social. It's good stuff.
Thank you. Thank you. That is the best compliment you can give me. Yeah. That VOD calendar, I was like, oh, this is easy SEO. It's now my life. So if anybody enjoys it, I'm really grateful.
Well, like we were just talking about, it's so much about curation these days because there's so much out there. You need, I don't know. I mean, you can take a stab at, Netflix has like a shuffle button now, right? You can just click it and have them play something for you, but that's probably not the most effective use of your time. So you need a little curation. And speaking of which, this show might be some of that for you. If you like weird stuff, maybe we'll be able to curate and get something in front of your eyeballs that we hope is worth your while. I mean, whether the movies we watch are good or bad is kind of beside the point. The question is, are they weird enough? And that's what we'll be looking to figure out. So why do we like weird movies? I like the feeling of seeing something unexpected, seeing something that throws me for a loop. I like when someone brings something to me. As a matter of fact, the movie we're watching tonight, The Baby, 1973, my mother texted me one night, have you ever heard of this movie, The Baby? It's nuts. And I'm like, no, I haven't. And so I get to go and watch that based on her recommendation and her suggesting it to me. So that's super cool and super fun, and I get so much out of it. And I'm hoping to bring that to you, dear viewers, as well. Why are you interested in these types of movies?
I think it's part of what you said, that as a horror fan, I'm not going to say how many years watching tons and tons of horror movies, like you get a little dead inside. You feel a little bit like a husk. And you've seen it all, right? You think so. And then you find weird cinema and you're like, oh no. I've just been training for this. And I think there's also that feeling, it's almost like a little bit of an it follows contagion, where when you find one, a big part of it after you've watched it is to share it with someone
Yes,
else.
that's the whole thing, right?
Mhm,
Hmm.
and then I think some of that is like, this is too weird for me to hold. I need somebody else to watch
Yeah,
this so
yeah.
I can talk about it. But then also, I think some of it is that feeling when they watch it and they get it, and you
Hmm.
have this weird like sense of community around it. Like, oh, okay, this person gets it. They, I don't know. I like that connection. I know when prior to this, when I would watch something weird, I would go straight to Discord and be like, Jeff,
Yeah, yeah.
you need to watch this.
Right. So
And then I would impatiently wait for you watch Titane.
yeah, 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 yeah. So what is weird? Was it a Supreme Court case where someone infamously said, trying to define pornography, and he said,
Mhm.
"Well, I can't define it, but I know it when I see it." And I feel
Yeah.
like that's kind of similar here. I don't know if I can exactly define what makes something weird for these purposes. Can you? I mean, uh, I don't know.
You put this in the doc, and I'm glad you did, because I felt like I had to spend some time thinking about it,
Hmm.
because I didn't have an answer. And I think the reason is because it's not just one thing, like it's a lot of factors that come together to make something weird. I think surrealism is a key part, but it's
Hmm.
not necessarily a guarantee of weirdness. I think it has to be combined with either a vision that is intending to kind of put you out of your comfort zone, or like kind of off kilter a little bit, or is unintentionally does that because of the vision of
Yeah.
the filmmaker
Right. Right.
themselves is a little weird.
Right.
And I think something that explores taboo but does it in the uncanny valley
Hmm.
makes it weird.
Yeah, I think maybe like a lack of guile sometimes is
Mhm.
kind of part of it. Like these people are
Mhm.
being honest. They're not doing this sarcastically or ironically a lot of
Right.
times in these movies. Yeah,
Yeah.
and
I think
then
it's also about playing with discomfort a little
yes,
bit.
yeah, for sure. And then
Mhm.
you mentioned Titan, and what I got to be thinking about that. And the other day, our friend Matt said, "Hey, you should watch like Jodorowsky on there," and
Mhm.
I watched Titan and I thought it was a fascinating movie, and I was like, oh, I want to talk about
Mhm.
this with Rachel. Maybe this would be a good thing for the show. But then I got to think about it more, and I was like, actually, I think that movie Titan and Jodorowsky and I don't know David Lynch, some of these other guys who you
Yeah.
might think might come to the front of your mind when you think about weird. Um, those movies are actually of a level of cinematic quality that I think kind of sets them apart from what I'm probably trying to explore here. And I'm not sure how again, this is just fuzzy, and I'm trying to think, put my own thoughts on paper, give voice to my own thoughts here. But I think like Titan compared to the baby, I mean, they are both very strange and very
Mhm.
weird. But the one is just such a high quality film, and I'm not saying the other is not a romp and a lot of fun, but I don't think it exactly fits the bill. Do you catch my meaning there at all?
I do a little bit. I mean,
Okay.
I would definitely call Titane a weird movie,
Hmm.
but I
Hmm.
also feel like it's a movie that people have discussed a lot.
Hmm.
And so by staying on the fringe and like in more of a cult place, I feel like maybe we have something fresh to say about it.
Hmm.
So, I mean, not that I wouldn't talk about Titane or Hodorowski or any of those
Yeah.
things, but I could see at least initially trying to maybe find those hidden gems, like the tucked away things on Shutter
I
or
mean,
whatever.
we're assuming we don't lose interest. We're gonna run out of content real soon, and then we'll be back flogging Titan any minute. So, so
I
don't
know.
don't worry about it.
You'll
Uh,
know when this episode disappears that
the
Titane is coming
the
next.
the
I'll drop the cross of Santa.
so the movies that I've been thinking about for this, they're often older. Like for example,
Mhm.
the Baby's 1973, and I've seen a couple others. Mostly when I'm just kind of shuffling around on Shutter and I click on something because it looks a little interesting, and it's from the 1980s or earlier. I have a notion that a lot of the things that I'm going to find and want to talk about are from that era. I don't know why that is, but I think part of it might just be the way people looked and dressed back then, the hairstyles, all of that stuff. Um,
Yeah.
is strange looking to my sensibilities, and so that's like maybe easy pickings. It's sort of artificial weirdness. It's easy weirdness, like, oh, I just think you're weird because you're wearing bell bottoms. I was trying to rack my brain and think, can I come up with some examples of movies later than the 1980s that I would think would qualify for weird or sort of, you know, hit the mark of what I'm going for here.
Mhm.
And I have a couple, but I want to ask you if you have like a couple more recent films that
Yeah.
might work.
Yeah. I mean, I put together a list
Okay.
because but so maybe do you want to go first
Yeah, I'll go
or
first.
yeah,
Not too long ago, I was clicking around on Tubi, everybody's favorite free movie
target rich
website.
environment
Yeah, yeah.
for
And on
weirdness.
a lark, I clicked on The People Under the Stairs, which is a movie I've seen many, many times, and it's from like 1991, maybe.
Mhm.
So, which is already
Mhm.
like 30 years old at this point, if you want a
God.
black pill.
I
Um,
am a mummy.
but as I watched that, I thought, you know, this is actually kind of weird, and I didn't never thought of it as weird because it was one of those movies that I watched a million times as a young person, like Lost Boys or Goonies or anything like that. So it's just very familiar to me. But stepping outside of it, it's like, yeah, the movie's pretty weird. And then the other one, which is very recent that I thought of, was Malignant.
That one is weird, and I almost put it on my list
Okay,
too.
okay,
Yeah, because I think it definitely harkens back to a very specific
yeah,
time in horror and
it has a
goes for
vibe
it.
kind of similar to these like 80s type things.
Yeah, definitely.
Hmm.
And it is bonkers in a
Yeah.
way that and the maximalism of it, I think it
Hmm.
definitely qualifies as
Yeah.
weird cinema.
Those were mine that I came with. And I guess People Under the Stairs is like I call it recent, but I just mean relatively
Yeah.
to the baby, for example. So what are a couple of ones that you thought of?
So I was thinking Boxing Helena is
Okay,
definitely a weird
yeah.
one.
That's a great call.
Yep, that's a good one. More recently, I would call The Lighthouse a weird
Okay,
cinema.
yeah.
I mean, I know it's also in that sort of like prestige horror, so I don't know if we would X that
I
out.
love how memeable The Lighthouse has become, while also
Mhm.
being so weird and so
So
kind of.
weird.
I mean, it's pretty self-serious. I mean,
Oh, absolutely.
so yeah.
Well, I mean, except for maybe the big
The
speech about the
the lobster,
lobster.
yeah, it's so good, so good.
You're fond of me lobster. Say it.
So I would say those are a couple one. There's one I don't know if you've heard of called Butt Boy,
Uh-uh.
where it's about like a guy who is investigating someone from his AA group that he is convinced is making people disappear up his butt.
Oh,
And
weird.
it is the most like base sort of concept, but it's taken incredibly seriously and like they're
Okay,
trying it's interesting.
okay.
It's actually interesting.
They pull it off.
And then my last one would be well, two. I'm gonna go with two more,
Yeah.
which are Mother
Oh yeah, yeah. Good one. Good call.
and Tusk.
I I I feel like I'm the guy who likes Tusk. Like I'm
No, I
alone.
love
Okay.
Tusk.
Okay. Great. Very good. Good.
That ending
Oh,
is
it's
like
great.
slideshow material. And I
Yeah.
think that's another aspect of what's like it has to have a moment that stays with you forever to really
Yeah. Yeah.
qualify.
You got to have that jaw drop somewhere in there. Like
Mhm.
what? Yeah.
And
Okay.
that movie has
Yeah. Those are great.
it.
Those are all great calls. Excellent, excellent. So I guess we'll move on to the main topic, but before we do so, we have to have, and you know, this is true for any media, movie, comic book review show. Uh, we got to talk about spoilers. The whole point of this stuff is that it's not like we're going to spoil the twist ending of something necessarily, but like the whole movie here is what we're going for is like a twist movie. The whole thing's so nuts and weird.
Yeah.
So we can't talk about it really without spoiling it. So we're gonna just flash up the graphic like every movie review show does and say spoiler alert. We recommend the film. We won't be talking about anything on the show that we wouldn't recommend you watch. You know, we're not gonna like psych you out and trick you into watching something horrible. I mean, you might feel horrible after you watch it, but the movie itself is not horrible.
Mhm.
So we think the movie's great. We encourage you to watch it. The Baby, 1973. At current time, as of this recording, it's available on Shudder. So if you're a Shudder
Yep.
subscriber, you can just hit it up in there. I think it's one. It's probably floating around on YouTube under the public domain or something. I don't know. It's 1970. I don't know if there's like a Vinegar Syndrome Blu-ray of The Baby yet, but maybe that'll be coming.
Criterion.
Yeah, Criterion Collection. So this is not a spoiler. This is just the synopsis, and this is stuff that you could glean from the poster of the movie. So this is not a spoiler, but shortly thereafter, spoiler alert. A social worker still reeling from the loss of her architect husband investigates the eccentric psychedelic Wadsworth family, consisting of a mother, two daughters, and an adult son with the apparent mental capacity of an infant. Written by Abe Polsky, directed by Ted Post. And I did not endeavor to see if they went on to have, illustrious filmographies post The
I will
Baby.
tell you, the director, the other thing he directed that same year was the Dirty Harry sequel.
Okay, wow.
Maximum Force? I think it's
Maximum
called?
Force, wow.
Yeah.
How much
He had a busy year.
how much force, Harry, how much force are we gonna need on this one?
Max.
The maximum amount, you guys.
Man's got to know his limitations.
So Anne is a social worker, and she appears to be a real true believer. She really thinks that she's going to get out there and help these people and change the world. She gets assigned to this family, the Wadsworth family, who are, as it said, eccentrics to say the least. The mother, I think we only ever hear her referred to as Mama or Mrs. Wadsworth. Kind of funny. And then the daughters, Jermaine and Alba, and the son, Baby, again, like Mama, he doesn't have a name, and they even address that in the movie. They say, no, he's just always been Baby. We call him Baby. He crawls around, wears a diaper, goo goo gaga. They have to feed him by hand with a spoon, and he sits in a crib. He doesn't walk. So yeah, he appears to be it's an adult male actor, and he's playing a baby, but he's actually, he seems to only have the capabilities of a small infant. Anne is, of course, intrigued by this. She's been assigned. There's this throwaway line, and are we supposed to read into something nefarious happened to the previous worker, right? There's like one line that says like, yeah, she just up and disappeared, and that's why you got this job now, Anne.
Nothing like job security when your boss is just like, yeah, that happens sometimes. We didn't bother investigating.
So I love this Wadsworth family. I would love to see, Rachel, like a Rob Zombie joint where it's Mama and the two daughters going off and having some adventure, right?
Yeah, Mrs. Wadsworth is camp. Like, if you love camp, this is heaven. She's incredible in this.
I saw some term, and I hope this is not unkind, but it was called her one of the great hagsploitation characters.
Yeah,
I'd never heard that. I'd never heard that term before. Hagsploitation.
Yeah, it's also called the Grande Dame Guignol.
Okay.
It's a little more flattering, but yeah. This falls under hagsploitation, I guess. Although she's pretty glam. She's got a very Mrs. Robinson vibe to her, but with more caftans.
So at the beginning, Anne becomes really fascinated with this family, particularly, specifically because of the baby. And it's kind of, you just take it at face value. He seems like Anne cares. He wants to do a good job. And
she's a social worker.
This appears to be a situation that's in some distress and they need some help.
To Baby, life was not a giant playpen. It was a living hell.
I guess walk through the plot here. So Anne starts seeing them, and then you get a few little vignettes of things. Like there's a scene with a babysitter that's pretty weird. Like,
yeah.
Remember
what I said before? Freudian?
Yeah.
We have an oral fixation in this movie for sure.
And they like wail. They catch the babysitter having sort of an untoward encounter with the baby, and they start wailing on her and beating her up. So like you get a sense that the mother and the daughters are kind of menacing, right? So Anne sort of wants to take the baby away. She even proposes to take him to a special school for developmentally disabled children. That was a little bit maybe exploitational. Yeah, how did you feel about that scene?
I think we got to get this out of the way that this movie is very problematic in some ways, and particularly around the way that it depicts disability.
Sure.
And I wouldn't say that it's exactly a pro-woman film, and yet I can't help but like this movie. So yeah, but I just need to get that disclaimer out there. The stuff because here's the thing is when he is a grown man in a cradle and we know the genre we're watching, there's you can kind of, not necessarily process the problematic stuff, or it doesn't make you
Mhm.
sad, but when you go to the school and you actually see the children and the way that they're depicted, that's the part of the movie, with
Yeah.
all the wild shit that happens in this,
Uh-huh.
that's the part of the movie that I struggled with the most,
Yeah, for sure. Me
seeing those
too.
little kids.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's just like this spot that kind of reminds. I hesitate to say what I was even going to say, but it like reminds me of watching like Cannibal Holocaust, and okay, here's the scene with the turtle. The whole rest of it's a fake movie, but then like,
Hmm.
okay, now we got to throw this in there, and it's like a little
I
bit.
don't need this verisimilitude, okay? Like, let's
Yeah.
just keep it like weird baby stuff in the cradle, please.
So
Like, keep it in the realm of kinkiness and out of the like children.
I must be one of like a movie writer, or a writer of any type. I must be a good mark, because I think of myself as a clever guy, but I don't pick up on any of this stuff when I'm watching a movie. Like even like the most mundane, Michael Bay Transformers movie probably gets me with the twist. I did not see like what was coming like almost until it happened, and I don't know now. As I said, um, while we were getting ready, like watching this a second time, it's kind of like watching The Sixth Sense the second time, where you see these little touches and things happening, and you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Oh, I get it, I get it. So there's a little bit of craft and writing in here that's noteworthy. But did you come up with anything close to a theory about what was going on earlier or in the middle part of this movie?
No. I definitely did not see where this was going. Maybe I'm an easy mark too. Personally, I think that's a much better way to. Who wants to guess the end of the
Yeah,
movie?
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the whole point.
But I think this is going to sound weird. I think the writing in this movie is pretty good in
Yeah.
terms
Okay.
of the way that it does the feint of hand a little bit.
Yeah. Okay.
Like it see everything you need is there on screen.
Mhm.
It all makes sense when it comes together, but it's presented in a way that there is a more obvious, like an Occam's razor will take you to a different place with it,
Mhm.
which is always a lot of fun, I think.
Yeah. So for me, I think the big turning point is the birthday party. So talk about like the birthday party and like what
You
that's
must be
all
the
about.
head of your women's lib chapter.
Oh,
In terms of, so the birthday party, this is how they lure her back to the house in order to, I guess, finally recreate whatever they did to the last social worker that got too invested in this
yeah,
story.
and sort of told them, I'm gonna go up the chain with this, because what you're doing, she's decided that they are intentionally keeping him from developing, or sort of keeping him this way intentionally, and she's gonna go up the chain, and they have this confrontation, and they say, okay, give us one more chance, sort of deal, and then
Yeah.
she comes to the birthday party.
Yeah, I kind of love it because we get this weird, surprising world building with
Oh
this
yeah,
family. Like
yes.
they
Yeah, it's like
have
a the
friends.
baby extended universe.
Yes, I did not expect that. You would think that they would be so insular considering
Mhm.
what they're doing, because we do see
Yeah.
that they're like actually abusing him and using negative reinforcement to keep him as a baby.
Mhm.
Um, but so to see that they don't live their life in the shadows that way was really interesting.
Mhm.
I know they're the villains of, well, are they the villains of the
Yeah,
piece?
see,
I
I
don't
don't
know.
know. I don't
Everybody's the
necessarily
villains
think
the
so.
piece.
Yeah.
I think everybody except for Baby is the villain of this
Right.
movie, um but I found myself very compelled by them, and I found it very believable that they would have these like groovy shindigs at their house that
Mhm.
everybody wanted to come to.
Yeah.
Um
And Jermaine's
yeah.
hair is killer.
It is
It is in
amazing.
general, but especially at the party. Just like I'd
She's
go
got
out
that
looking like
witchy
that right
woman
now.
thing down.
Yeah.
I
I
mean, they do kind of fit into that, like the maid and the crone and the what's the other one? The mother, the maid and the crone. Like
mm.
they definitely kind of fall into
Yeah, okay.
those
Okay.
kind of like witchy
Yeah.
sort of. This movie is full of these weird like women's movies tropes between the mother, the maiden, and the crone. Whatever. And but also like all the Lifetime, we've got the divorcee, the troubled like acting out teens, we've got the widow, we've got like all of these different tropes. It's funny to see them put into this film, which is essentially like this anxiety around the women's movement of the 70s,
Hmm. Hmm.
all packaged into this. I don't know. It's just the thing I love about weird movies is that I love a good fluffy, nothing, easy brain turn off kind of movie, but
Uh-huh.
even if these aren't good, they're always saying something. There's a
Yeah.
vision behind them. And I think that's one of the things with you can actually unpack the baby, which is interesting because it is essentially an exploitation film, but there's a lot happening underneath the hood of this movie.
Yeah, like I don't know Abe Polsky, of course, the writer, but you could make if you were just going to write a schlocky movie because you wanted to make a movie and maybe you had some sort of angle to monetize it or whatever, you can do it without going uh, without being this creative, right? You could just make a
Yeah.
slasher movie in a house and I don't know, but this is like creative and interesting and something I'd never really contemplated before. So
Right.
so yeah, you give them some credit for that. This wasn't just like Friday the 13th, which is as much as I like it, it's just kind of is what it is, you know.
Right.
All right.
I mean, I he's obviously tapping into like all of the psychoanalysis of the 1970s in
Mm-hmm.
this, which is hilarious,
Mm-hmm.
but all the negative reinforcement. The other thing we did not mention, I just wanted to talk about one of the weirdest things about this
Mm-hmm.
movie before we wrap up is that he doesn't just act like a baby. They have dubbed baby
Yeah.
voice over it. Like I was like, okay, this is weird adult baby kink stuff. Like
Right.
it's not my genre of sexy, but like it wasn't that weird. And then the baby voice
Right. Yeah.
kicks
Yeah.
in,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh,
That's such
we
a
just went to another level with
yeah.
this.
It's an interesting touch. It really, I don't know. It helps. It makes it just because you don't. I didn't notice it until I read that, and then when I read it and like I was
Oh
like, oh
God.
wow, because I thought he was just making those sounds himself. Uh,
Oh.
so at the party again, we're in spoiler territory. This is like where I guess I believe for the first time that the mother and the daughters are actually going to hurt Anne, like because they tie her up, and
Hmm.
I think they're even saying if not specifically we're gonna kill her, they're saying okay we're gonna go take care of her and all
Hmm.
that type of stuff. So this is where it's like okay now we're into the climax of the film. We're gonna have some real stuff go down.
Hmm.
Anne manages to escape with the help of the baby. Now there's this is just a nonsense throwaway thing, but they're like locked up in a cellar or something, and the baby accidentally smashes a jar and
Oh
there's these
God. He's
jars
like
arrayed
eating.
behind him. What is in those jars? They
I
look like
mean,
eyeballs to me, but I don't think.
I mean, it's some sort of preserves, but
Yeah,
yeah, it's kind of rough watching him eat floor jam for
I'm
a
like,
while.
I'm just thinking of my kid like playing around in some broken glass or something like, oh, come on, no, no.
Yeah, it's not
But
great.
so Anne escapes with the baby, and it's kind of turning here too, where you're starting to wonder a little bit about Anne because Anne kidnaps, I guess you'd say, the baby,
Right.
dresses him up in a. She takes him back to her house. Her husband was a well-to-do architect, so she kind of lives in a mansion. Another interesting thing about this is kind of the cliche, in jokes and whatnot, is that mother-in-law and daughter-in-law don't always get along. But
Right.
in
And they're
this
not
movie,
usually co-conspirators.
yeah, in this movie, they're very close. They live together. The mother of Anne's, you presume that she was widowed in a car crash or something, I think, but
Mhm.
they live together in their family home and they're very close. So Anne takes the baby back to their house and dresses up in an adult man's suit and gets him to sort of. She stages a photograph. He's not actually coming out of his situation at all, but she stages a photograph to kind of portray that he is, and uses that to tell the Wadsworth family that she's making progress with him and she's not returning him. And then they make their decision about what needs to be done.
You want him for yourself. Well, agency or no agency, you ain't gonna get him. Because baby belongs to us. No, to me.
Yeah, yeah. They
Oh
pull on
yeah,
the
so
ski
they try to
masks
do a
and
little
yeah.
B&E to
Uh-huh.
come in and snatch the kid, and mistakes were made.
Yeah. You have this great scene where the one that like it makes you like, wait, what's going on? Where the mother-in-law, and I'm sorry, I forget her name, speaks with Anne and she says something like, okay, do you really want to go through with this? And she's like, yeah, man. And she's like, yeah, okay, right on, fist bump. And you're like, what? Go through with what? And so they expect to be, I guess, attacked, and they turn the tables on the Wadsworth family. And spoilers, they kill them all. They kill all
Yeah.
three of these people, like up close and personal knives,
Yeah.
And
When the mother-in-law has her on the ground with the axe. I was just like, oh, whoa,
yeah, yeah,
whoa,
yeah.
whoa. This
And
is a different movie than I thought I was
and one
watching.
thing I noticed on my second viewing that I didn't probably notice the first time around was Anne is sort of pleading with imploring her boss, I think, or some doctor with whom she's getting help on the case, and she says, there's nothing worse than being buried alive. Like that's that's how she's described. That's
I
how she's
missed that.
that's how she's describing baby's life. He's buried alive in this state of underdevelopment, and so she is expressed that being buried alive is the worst thing she could think of doing to someone. And then she indeed proceeds to bury alive Mama. And it's like, wow, that was a touch. They had this little subplot going, not a subplot, but just like off in the background, they were building a swimming pool at their palatial estate. And so they bury the women under the swimming pool, and then the swimming pool gets built with the cement and everything over top of it. And then I'll let you do the honors. Like, what happens at the end of this movie?
So so all along we've understood the motivation of Anne is to protect baby. She recognizes that there is a grown man that has been suppressed inside him, and so she wants to get him into classes. She wants to do all kinds of things in order to allow him to develop naturally. This is what we have been led to believe. However, what she really was trying to do was find herself a playmate for her still living husband who has suffered some sort of brain injury and has the mental capacity of a child. So in the nursery awaits a bandaged friend for baby. And so after all of this, she has no intention on helping him develop. Her and her mother-in-law now have a new happy family of mother, and two grown children.
They're just two peas in a pod, these young guys.
What the fuck?
And she brings out, look, guys, I got you a present. And it's these like pool toys that they're going to play with in the swimming pool. And the movie ends with everyone frolicking in the pool, just having the best time. And like it's a freeze frame on Anne's face, and she's just smiling. And then there's this weird little discordant music. The music in this movie is really good, by the way.
It's really great.
I mean, it's like, wow, I'd pull this track up on Spotify if it's on there. I don't know, but it's the ending. Like I didn't see it coming. I just didn't.
Absolutely not. And that's the mark of good weird cinema,
And
where you're left going like at the end of the movie.
Right. And going back and watching it a second time, like she doesn't say my husband was killed.
No.
I just as a person who, if I was hearing someone describe their situation, I would be like, oh, okay, yeah, it's something sad happened. I'm not going to pry.
Right.
Yeah. So this movie's nuts. Highly recommend it. I don't know where my mother saw it. I think she saw it. She watched because she's a normie, she just has cable. I think it came across Turner Classic Movies late one night or something like that.
That makes
Because
sense.
you'll see some weird stuff on there, and God bless her for telling me about it, because this was a hoot. And I
love that your mother told you about this. The irony of your not just it's a weird one for your mom to recommend, but motherhood is this movie.
Right. And it held up to a second viewing for me too. I mean, I had a lot of fun seeing it again, even though I already knew some of these movies. Once you know the twist, it's like, yeah, okay, whatever. I'm not gonna. But this one, I got a lot out of it even the second time. Now there was some space between my viewings, a year or two more, probably more than. So,
Yeah,
but still,
a long time ago.
But still, yeah, it holds up, and certainly for your first viewing, it's gonna be a hoot. Watch this with someone who you think might get tricked by it, get pulled in by it, because it's just a lot of fun. It's exactly the sort of thing. This is emblematic of the type of thing that I'm hoping to find a bunch of for this show. And then I want to, like, when we watch a movie, I'm going to ask the question, okay, it was weird, but was it weird enough? And in the case of the baby, I will say emphatically, yes, this was weird enough. Weird enough for me. Was it weird enough for you?
I mean, there are weirder movies out there, but this is like that perfect sweet spot of weird and
Okay.
also not too much work.
Right. Yeah.
Like
yeah.
it goes down easy, but you're also just like,
Yeah. Like
and I cannot wait to make everybody in my life watch it,
oh yeah. That's
even
the
having seen it. Yeah.
yeah. It's like The Ring. You got to like show it to someone within 7 days. Or
Mhm.
you'll turn into a baby yourself.
My best friend I have forced to watch tonight, and I got a text message from her that just simply says, "Holy shit!"
Awesome.
So I think we have a winner.
Awesome. Well, that's the baby, and that's the weirder the better. Hopefully we'll find some more weird stuff. You can comment if you have suggestions that you think might be worth checking out. I don't know what's next, but we'll flash it up here if we think of it by the time I edit this video. But
Yeah.
Stay tuned for more. And Rachel, thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you. This was so fun.
Yeah,
I'm so
thanks.
excited to see what gems we
Gems
find.
for sure. For sure. Thanks. Good night.
Bye, everybody.